And what was that? Well, that was the trepak, or trepak? Don't know how you say that. The Russian dance from Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker Suite, which you may think you know from the movie Home Alone, but it is not in Home Alone. It's a very deliberate, I think, tip of the hat by John Williams to Tchaikovsky, since both the movie and the ballet have Christmas connotations. And it's a bit tricky on the guitar. It's intended for the high strings in the orchestra, so there's some stuff that's not too friendly on guitar but is fun to play. So if anyone busts out the electric at the Christmas party, then you can show them this. So let's slow that right down so you can really see what's going on. Here we go. So let's take a look at that first phrase. We're in G major, so we're going to start all the way up here on the 15th fret of the top E string with the middle finger, the G. Then we're going to pull off to the 14th fret, or the F sharp, and then go back to the G. So the rhythm is like this. Then we're going to move to the B string, and we're going to play 17, 15, 13, 17, and then back to 15, or E, D, C, E, D. So with the first part, it sounds like this. And I'm using little finger, middle finger, first finger, little finger, middle finger to do those notes. So the second phrase is almost identical to the first, except it's been transposed down a fourth, which in guitar terms means we can just move to the B string and play what we already played for the first phrase. So remember, the first phrase was... And then the second phrase starts here on that D, the 15th fret of the B string. So it's almost identical, except there's an extra note has been squeezed in at the very end of the bar. And I'm also fingering it slightly differently to set myself up for the next phrase. So still we go middle finger on the 15th fret of the B string this time, pulling off onto the 14th fret, or the C sharp, so there's a little chromatic alteration here. Then back to that D. Then 16, 14 on the G string, and 17 on the D. Then back to 16 on the G string, and then back to that D, but those last two notes are semiquavers or sixteenths. So the whole thing so far is... And just a note on picking, I'm doing all downstrokes, even though we're not muting. I find at tempo, or at the correct tempo, doing all downstrokes creates a more incisive, consistent sort of rhythmic attack. But you could do slow alternate picks if you wanted to, but I find when it gets a bit faster in a minute with some of the picking we have to do, if we're already doing downstrokes, we can keep the picking more consistent once we start having to add in 16th notes and that kind of thing. So now we get to the fun part, which we're going to need a gallop rhythm for. And what do I mean by a gallop rhythm? Well, of course I mean this. And that's one quaver followed by two semiquavers, or a long note followed by two short notes of half the length of the first note. But the difference with this gallop is, rather than being on one string, which is usually the case with most metal or rock where it's used, it actually goes between two strings, and the second 16th note of the two is on the next string above. So like this. So first, get down the gallop rhythm just on one string, and the picking for it is down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. And the speed in the trepak is about... Then, it's worth practicing it between two strings. So you can pick any two notes, say I do it here. But then try and build up the speed doing it that way, because it's much harder actually, because you have to traverse a greater distance for the upstroke, because the upstroke is going to be on the next string. So the gap is bigger, so the pick stroke has to be wider. So once you've got that to a good speed, we can then actually look at the different notes we're going to be playing to make it work in the Tchaikovsky piece. So here I think it's worth separating what's happening rhythmically and what's happening melodically. So rhythmically we've got the gallop in the right hand, which we just looked at. But melodically what's happening in the left hand, if we take out all those extra fast little notes in the gaps, what are the main notes happening on the strong beats that give us a sense of the tune? Well, they're basically this. Because we're playing the excitable high string line, we've got to fill in the gaps between those melodic notes with the gallop, and we're going to keep returning to this note with the little finger, which is the 15th fret of the B string, or that D again. So putting the two together will sound like this. So at speed or close to speed or something like that. So then we have a short transitional run which gets us back to the top of the melody. And we've ended with the third finger on the 14th fret of the G string, or that A there. And we're going to play 4 16th notes, which are that A, and then 10, 12, 14 on the top E string. So in the context of what we've just done, it sounds like this. Now I'm doing an awkward shift here to get back to the middle finger to start the whole thing over again. And you might ask, well, why am I not ending the previous phrase with the first finger and then going... Which does make more sense for getting back to that middle finger on the G. But the reason I'm doing this, even though it is more awkward, is because I want it to sound more fluid, because it is a scalic run-up. Essentially we're just going up very logically back to D quite quickly. I don't want the timbral change of the different strings here. I want that tonal consistency. But you could do it like this if you wanted to, but that's not how I've been doing it. So now we've arrived back at the top of the whole melody, and we're going to do the whole thing all over again, exactly the same, except the very ending is slightly different. So the ending we've just done sounded like this. But the new ending, the second ending, sounds like this. So did you hear the difference? It's a very small difference, but it is there. So we're just changing the order of the B, G, and A. So the first time it's... and the second time it's... So B, G, A for the first one, and for the second one, B, A, G, E, G. So it may seem like a subtle difference, and it is, but the reason for it being there is that the implied cadence each time is slightly different. So the first time, that's implying chord 5, or D in G major, so a perfect cadence, 5 to 1. And the second time, that's implying chord 4, or C in G major, so 4 to 1, which is a plagal cadence, because the E is the third of the C chord. So a subtle but necessary change. Then we have a final transitional run again to get us back to the top of the melody yet again. And this time it's a flurry of 3/16 triplets. So similar to before, but a bit faster. So in the context of that last phrase, it's this. And again, I'm doing that awkward little shift where I play it all on the top E string, again for fluidity and timbral consistency. And then shifting to the middle finger. And again, if you wanted to, you could do it here. So 15, 17, 19 on the B string. And then hit that G at the top of the melody with your first finger. Which means you wouldn't be able to do the pull off because you wouldn't be set up for it. But you could do a slide, so you could go as opposed to... Or you could do a quick shift to your middle finger. Either of those is probably easier than what I'm doing, but you do get used to it, and I do think it sounds tonally a bit better, but it's a very subtle difference. So there it is, there's the whole thing. Let me play it at speed for you one more time and put all those parts together.